everyone and welcome back to Urban Flower Collective. My name's Lisa, I'm your host here. So if you're here now, you've probably been watching or trying to make the water lily that I made. And so this tutorial is all about the leaves and the buds. So if you look at the one we made earlier, you can see it's got these lovely sort of lily pad shiny leaves that go around the flower, and that's what we're going to be making. So I'm going to go back to our little flower that we made that doesn't have any lily pads on at the moment. As well as the lily pad, I'm going to show you how to make these little buds as well. So these little water lily buds, and they look really nice together as part of your arrangement, with the buds coming out of the arrangement too. So I think we'll start off with the bud because it's a bit less messy. The leaf is a little bit messy when it comes to the dusting. So what we need for these buds is either a polystyrene ball or a polystyrene cone like this one. If you haven't got those, don't worry, you can make your own cone out of modelling paste or flour paste. It will be a little bit heavier though, so bear that in mind. So I've got this cone shape. I'm just going to take some 20 gauge wire and I'm just going to pop that through. Now you can sometimes get these pre-wired as well, but if not, you can just do what I'm doing here and fold the wire over that way and give it a good twist. And that should secure it. So we'll just twist that all the way down and there you have it. As I say, if you don't have this, just make a cone shape out of your flour paste. So next we're going to make the petals. Now, if you watch the water lily tutorial, you will see that I've brought in a set of dahlia petal cutters for this. And I'm going for the third size up in this dahlia petal cutter set. To know that it's right, just make sure that it will wrap around your cone or the cone that you've made. So that's fine. We're also going to need some 24 gauge wire as well. So let's start. So I'm just going to get some white modelling paste again, some white flour paste. As usual, I'm using my favourite, ultrafine. Let me know in the comments how you got on with the water lily. Did it go okay? Have you made it yet? Are you just perusing the videos and having a little look? Remember to subscribe and to turn on notifications for these because I've got lots of new tutorials planned in the next few months. So yeah, it'd be great for you to subscribe and do a few more tutorials as well. So I'm just going to condition this paste by giving it a little massage, and I'm just going to roll it out. I'm going to roll it out by hand. I like to use a pasta roller often if I'm making a lot of petals, and I did do that for the water lily itself. But if I'm only doing a few petals, I'll just roll it out by hand. You just get a nice even paste if you do it on the pasta machine. If you haven't got a pasta machine, then look out on eBay and look out in sort of local selling groups, because often people will buy a pasta machine, they'll use it once and then they pop it in a cupboard and it's never seen again. So, you know, put a call out, is anyone selling a pasta machine? And you may just get a bargain, and it just means that you can roll your paste out really evenly and nice and thin. So I think that should do. Now I'm going to take my dahlia cutter and I'm just going to cut out 5 petals. Now if you're a slow worker, then you could put these in a polythene document wallet or a petal protector, but we're not going to be too long with this. 4, 5, and that is going to be more than enough. So let's keep our paste for another time. So this is what I mean by a petal protector. It's just 2 sheets of polythene basically. This one's got 2 flaps and you can pop them inside and it stops them drying out. Now you need this when you're using a lot of petals for a flower, otherwise by the time you get around to working on the first one will be dry. So let's pop that there. Now what I'm going to do is just give these a little thin around the edges. Now this is called a boning tool. If you've done my other tutorials, you'll know I really like to use this. If you haven't got one of these, you could use a ball tool, or you could use the edge of your rolling pin. And all I'm doing is just thinning out the very edges of these petals. We've rolled it out really thinly, but there's always more room to make it even thinner. The finer the edges of your petals, the more realistic they're going to look. Now don't worry if it loses its shape a bit, we can always recut that. And that one really has. I must have made them thicker than I thought. So what I'm going to do is just recut that one, because I don't like that shape at all. This cutter, it doesn't seem as sharp as it once was. Probably used it too much. And I'm going to do the same with that one, because water lily petals do have a pretty pointy top. So this shows you what happens when things go wrong. If I'd rolled out the paste with the pasta machine, it wouldn't have been as thick, and I wouldn't have needed to recut these, but never mind. Just shows you what you can do if things go wrong. Right, I think they should be okay. So what I'm going to do now is take them out of the wallet and I'm going to put them in the veiner. Now this veiner that I'm using, if you watch the water lily flower tutorial, is a lotus flower veiner. Any sort of veiner with straight lines will do. So you could use a sunflower veiner, you could use a corn husk veiner, you know, something with straight lines. At a push you could use a magnolia veiner. So I'm just going to do this for all 5 petals. So just get these nice veins in. And then taking our excess paste that we just used, I should have left that rolled out. I'm just going to roll it out again, and I'm going to cover over the tip of this. Just going to cut a little bit off. Cut it in a circle. And I'm going to cover just the tip of this. So if the petals don't meet properly, we won't see polystyrene, we'll see flower paste. Now I've got some egg white here. You can use edible glue or whatever. You could use water even for this part. And I'm just going to paint a little bit onto the top of the cone. And I'm going to stick this down. So just go gently with it. The only bit we're ever likely to see is this tip at the top. So it doesn't matter what the rest of it looks like. If it's a mess, it's going to be covered over with petals. So I'm just going to give it a rub. Try and get rid of any bulky bits. Press those down. And that's our cone covered at the top. Next, we're going to take these. Now the veins are on the back, so the ridges are the back of the petal, and the dips are the front of the petal. We're going to take our egg white again, And I'm just going to paint down 3/4 of one side and 1/4 of the other. So 3/4 of the left hand side and 1/4 of the right hand side on each petal. 3/4, 1/4, 3/4, 1/4, 3/4, 1/4, and that's our glue to stick these petals down. Now we're going to start with the first one, and the bit where there's 3/4 painted on, we're going to stick that down at the very tip and leave this flap open a little bit. Now we're going to do the same with the next one. So we're going to go underneath with the bit we've got 3/4 covered, and we're going to just stick that down, leave this flap open, go underneath with the next one, just make sure they're going to meet at the very top, and go down. Leave a flap open, go underneath with the next one, leave a flap open, then our fifth and final one will go underneath and over the top. So if you need to manipulate these round a little bit, just until they all meet, you can do that. Now it's up to you, you can leave it at one row or you can continue. If you want to do a second row, you can put a second row on. I think just for a nice little closed bud, that is going to be enough. Like so. So I'm going to just leave that to one side to dry while I roll out a little bit of green. Now I've got some holly green here. So I'm just going to condition the green. Now there are two ways you can do leaves. You can have them tight up against the bud, which I'm going to show you on this one. Or you can make them wired, like I've done with this one, and then you can manipulate them out and have them looking a little bit more open. So I'm going to show you the closed version first. So all we are going to do is cut out some leaves, and again it's going to be the same size cutter. I'm trying to make this as thin as I can, but you can see I'm not doing a great job. This cutter's really not performing well. What I'm going to do is do it this way. If your cutters aren't working so well, put the paste over the top. You can give a nice run round and you'll get a much cleaner cut. So I'm going to do that for these. You need about 3 leaves to go on each bud. I'll do an extra one because I want to show you how to do a wired leaf as well. again, I'm just going to thin these out slightly, try not to make them the wrong shape, but I'm going to thin them out around the edges. Leaves are usually a little bit thicker. And then again, they're going to go in this veiner. And I'm just going to pop them on a spoon to hold that shape while I do the others. Two. And three. So they're the ones that are going to stick on. If I was doing a wired one, I would wire it just the way I would wire petals. So I would take a piece of wire, put a twirl of sugar paste on, make that as thin as possible, and it needs to be really super sticky. If it's not sticky, use some fresh paste. And then I would pop that on the back of the petal, like so, just to the end of where the sugar paste starts. Pop it in the veiner, press down, and you've attached your wire. So I'm going to pop that in a spoon to dry as well. If you don't have these spoons, you can just use some aluminium foil, press it in your veiner, take it out, and you've got a former there as well. So that's those. So now this has dried off a little bit. I'm going to bring this back over. We'll put the leaves to one side for now. So now it's time to get a bit messy with some dust. So there's not too much colour. This bud I made as an example has quite a lot of pink on it, but this one I only want to put some dust on the very bases, and I'm going to leave the rest of it white. So it's going to tie in with this other lily that we made in the lily tutorial, where it's just got pink at the very bases, you can see. So I'm going to take my, I'll bring over some paper because I'm usually a bit messy, my Fractal Colours Pelican Pink, and a pink brush, and I'm just going to start to dust at the base and just have sort of an ombre effect. So you can add more pink, but you can't take it away, so be careful with this. Don't put too much on. Don't go all the way up the petal if you just want this kind of ombre effect. So have a little bit more at the base. Most of this is going to be covered up by leaves, but we will see some of it. So if you're not if you haven't had much practice with dust, and these are quite nice flowers to try with because not a lot can go wrong here. We're not using lots of shades on this, and it's just this kind of ombre effect we're after. If you wanted, you could put a tiny little bit at the tips or inside to look like there's a little bit of pink just peeping through at the tips. But that's enough for me. Obviously you can shade it and you can use the internet for inspiration for other buds, but that little ombre effect is what I'm going for here. Now, next we're going to bring over our leaves. Now we need to do something with these because they're pretty flat. So I'm going to bring over some greens. I've got a, what colour is this? An olive green here, and I've got a Fractal Colours gooseberry green, and I'm going to use those too. So remember the ridges are on the back, so I'm just going to start to dust this up with some olive green, and it's going on the ridges really nicely. And then, where's my other brush? I'm going to add a bit of olive green I think as well, just to put some tone into this. You can even add a little bit of pink as well if you want to give it some more interest as well. And then what I'm going to do is start at the very, very base. So this is why you're never going to see that base. And I'm going to just put some edible glue about 3/4 of the way up this. So I'm going to start right underneath and stick that on like so. I'm going to leave it open a little bit at the top, because we're seeing the inside of that. I'm just going to give that a little brush as well. So that's the first one. I'm going to do the same with the second and third. You can, if it looks good with just 2, then leave it at 2. But I'm going to bring both of these over and give them a little dust. I'm going to do a quick dust. You take your time and make this look pretty. You know, I'm just doing this really quickly for demonstration purposes, as you can see. And as always, don't put too much on. You can't take it off again once it's on. So just go steady with it. I like this little gooseberry colour, it's nice. I'm going to put some of that on the tip. Of course you can be a little more artistic than I'm being here. And I think I will put a little bit of this pelican pink on as well. Just maybe at the top. Just blend that in. So I'm going to take my glue, put it 3/4 of the way up on the inside, and starting at the very bottom, I'm going to stick that on. And then finally, the last one, ridges go on the outside and the little valleys on the inside. Stick that on as well. So there we have it. If you want it to look more closed, you can stick them down a little bit more. And actually, I think I will, because the other one is going to have a more open look. So I think I will stick them completely down. So that is your bud. We just need to finish it off now with some tape, which I'm going to do down the stem. So just stretch the tape, twirl it down to cover all the way. And that's really quite a cute little bud. So if you wanted to do one like this, where you can manipulate these leaves out a little bit more to make it look more like the bud is actually bursting open, you do exactly the same. So we've already got this one drying. Here's one I've dried before. You would just do exactly the same, dust it up, but tape it to the bud like so. So there we have our two different ways of doing our magnolia buds. So I hope that's been useful. Now let's move on to the leaf. So again, we're going to get a little bit messy. In fact, I'm going to keep that green paper because we will be using green. So let me move that out of the way. Now, for this, I don't have a proper waterlily cutter or veiner. So true to form, I've got a geranium. I've got a geranium leaf veiner, which is very, very, very similar to a lily pad. And then all I did was draw around the shape of this cutter on some card, and then just cut in a tiny little bit further from the edge of it to get this template. So this is the template I'm going to use to cut out my vein, and you can do that for any flower, any plant, any leaf. You know, if you haven't got the actual cutter for it, you can take a leaf off the plant, or you can go draw around your veiner and make yourself a template. So that's what we're doing here. So again, I'm going to take some green, and I've got ready coloured holly green. We are going to add more colour to this, but this will do for a start. So let's just get that conditioned. Let's give it a get it nice and sticky and ready to roll. Again, I'm just going to roll this out by hand. Now this leaf needs to be a little bit thicker than the petals were. We need it to stand up. So if I show you on the one I've made earlier, you know, these need, we don't want them floppy, we want them to stand up. So we're going to roll it out a little bit thicker, but we're also going to put some support in the leaf as well. So let's get that rolled out. I think that should be enough. So I'm just going to pop that down. I'm going to take a cutting wheel. You could use a knife, an X-Acto blade. I just feel that with a wheel, it doesn't pull the paste as much. Obviously, if you have got a cutter, then that's great. Use the cutter. But as I say, if you don't, then this is an easy way to get your shape. So again, I'm going to try and just thin around that edge again. I don't like that sort of very thick, just cut look. So even though it is a chunkier thing, I'm still going to just thin that out a little bit using my favourite technique. So that's that. Now, because we want this support, we want it a little bit more, a little bit firmer. If we just put a single wire in here, it would flop. I know it would flop. Even when it was dry, it would tend to flop. So I'm going to put a little bit more structure in. So if we look at the veiner here, it's got quite a few big veins going down at different angles from the centre of the leaf. So what I'm going to do is take 3 pieces of 24 gauge wire. I'm going to use the same technique where I put the paste on the wire. So I'm just going to twirl some paste about 1 centimetre, maybe 1.5 centimetres down each wire. Now this does need to be super sticky, like I always say. If it's not super sticky, this paste, if it's gone a little bit dry, then please use fresh paste. Mine is still sticky because I've just rolled it out, so it should be fine. So just going to roll that down the 3 places. And then actually I'm going to use the pliers to bend it. 2 of these I'm just going to bend just at the very base of where the flower paste has gone on. and one I'm going to leave straight. And then what I shall do is just tape these 3 together. Then I'm going to line it up with the veins. So if you need to move them a little bit more, you can do that, but just get them lined up so that the 3 prongs lie in the veins of, in the hollows of the veins. Now you can probably see that this has got a little dimple in as well. So I'm just going to take a tiny bit of paste and roll it up and pop that in there as well, because we don't want the veins prodding through the leaf. I just put my leaf back in the plastic here, so I'm going to pop that on so it lines up with the veins nicely, and pop the leaf over. Try not to move it, and then I'm going to pop the top veiner on and give it a good press down to get all those lovely veins in there, get all the detail. Just give it a good press down. And there we have our lovely leaf. So what I'm going to do is just bring over some dimple foam. I might just actually roll to around the edge of this on the petal pad first, I don't want it to be frilly, but I do want to give it a tiny bit of movement. If you haven't used a ball tool before, it's half on the pad and half on the flower paste, and it just will give it a little bit of movement. And then I'm just going to dry it on this dimple foam. So I'm going to press it down just to give it a little bit of shape, and we're going to leave it flat like that. So it looks okay, but we can make it look better. So I've dried one out already, and I'm going to show you how we dust it up. So if you look at it like this, it looks pretty flat, not much detail in it. So let's jazz it up a bit. So what I'm going to do is bring over some dark green and some yellowy green. So this is moss green, this is Fractal Colours gooseberry green. I'm also going to bring a little bit of pink, the pelican pink that we used for the water lily itself and for the buds, and a little bit of bishop purple, and we're going to make this look a bit nicer. So taking the dark green first, I'm just going to brush over the whole leaf. And in fact, I'm going to use my bigger brush for this. And the dark green goes nicely into the veins there. And I'm going to do the same with the back. So you can hardly see those wires at all. They just look like part of the veins. So yeah, it's a great way to strengthen this, because it's got support from 3 pieces of wire rather than just one. This isn't going to flop, it feels nice and firm. So I've started off with that dark green. Next I'm going to do some of this lighter, this gooseberry green, and sometimes lily pads do go a little bit yellow. So I'm just going to take a section. I mean, this can be wherever you want. You can put little dots of yellow on it. I'm just going to do a whole section here, yellow, and it just livens the whole leaf up. So that's looking better already. I'm going to take a little bit of pink, I think, and put some pink just round one of the edgy bits here. Maybe at the bottom as well. And then finally I'm going to take a flatter brush and put a little bit of purple on, but I'm just going to kind of tap it around the edges and maybe bring it in a little bit on the edges. And this just adds a whole dimension to the leaf rather than just leaving it flat. So obviously I'm doing this really quickly. You can take your time a bit, decide where you want to put your colours, but I think that looks nice. I'm going to put a little bit of dark up a couple of these leaves as well, these veins. So there we go. Now, what we need to do is at the very base of here, we're going to turn this to a right angle because the lily pads look like this. Now that looks pretty good, but what if you look at the examples I've shown you, they're nice and shiny. So this one looks dull. We want it to look like it's been in the water, we want it to look shiny. So to get that look, what I'll use is this PME glaze. Now I'm not going to do it here in the studio, I like to do it outside because if you get this on any surfaces, it's a nightmare to get rid of. So I'm going to take this outside and spray it with this glaze, and it will get that kind of shiny look, which is really nice. You don't have to do that, but I think it really adds and makes it look much more like a lily pad. So I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. We've looked at how to make nice buds. We've looked how to make a shiny leaf, a lily pad, and in the last tutorial you learned how to make the lily, the water lily itself. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe, remember to hit the notifications button because there's lots of new tutorials planned. If you need help with your cake business, then come and join us at Urban Cake Collective. If you need a little bit of help and support with your sugar flowers, then come and join us on our free Facebook group at Urban Flower Collective. Lovely to see you. Join me again soon. Bye for now.